that was definitely top 3 like most soul crushing moments of my
Oh
life.
my. Welcome back to Outside the Grind. This week we have the one and only Danger Taco with us, man. How are we feeling this evening?
I'm feeling good. This has always been fun to be able to sit down, especially with you. You're a creator that like I saw a lot in Twitter, and didn't get really
Yeah.
talk, and then we finally like at an event. I'm like, oh, you're like physically right there. I can go talk to you, and then we actually did get to like chat for an extended period of time, not just like the hey,
Yeah.
what up, fist bump, respect to you, and then walk away. So
Yeah.
that's been it's been nice to be able to be invited on this prestigious series that you got going
Oh,
on.
thank you, man. I appreciate you carving out some time for it. And I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up because that is like probably the number one motivator for wanting to do a show like this. Um, I've talked about this a couple times with some other folks, but in the digital world, it's just so much more difficult to build that rapport. You know, we don't have those organic, natural spaces that we come across people, whether it's like, you're a bookworm and you make friends at the library, or you're, a health person or exercise person and you make friends at the gym. Like we all, like you described, we interact on Twitter, support one
Mhm.
another, maybe say hello here or there, but it's so difficult to find time to just sit and hang out and have a conversation. And so that was a big motivator in wanting to do this series. So I appreciate you taking some time, and I'm looking forward to learning more about Mr. Taco.
Yeah, I mean that's also why I think lands have been huge.
Yeah.
The return of them because everyone's like, oh, you get to go in person. It's like a
Mhm.
sporting event. I'm like, I mean, yeah, if you want to go, you can watch esports and that's great, but it's also nice on the peripheral level, especially when you're a creator or a commentator or anyone that does business within esports or like has a network to
Yeah.
actually be able to meet with people. And, people saying like networking is a dirty word, but it's incidental. You just talk
Yeah.
with cool people with shared interests.
Yeah.
And through that, you learn, oh, this isn't just like a performative friendship. Like I genuinely have a lot
Dude.
in common with these people. You vibe with these people, and it's not just because you're in the same community. It shows that like no, you can genuinely have like deep connections with
Yeah.
people and make inroads in that way without it meaning to just be like this is a purely business like transactional
Yeah.
relationship that people have with each other.
That was very well put. Performative. Yeah. 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 I totally agree. I think you're exactly right. Um, Hopefully we'll get some more lands. I think I saw you're not going to Boston, are you?
No, this is yeah, that's something we'll probably touch on a little bit later. But yeah, there's been transitions lately, so it's like one of those things where I could afford that, but I'm like, should I afford that?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like
Same here,
it's
dude.
like
Same.
that balance. I'm like, I could
Yeah.
totally swing that, but it's also
Sure.
one of those things that 3 months down the line, I don't want to be like, oh, why did I do
Yeah.
that? Why did I
Yeah.
spend all that money in that one in that one mode? Because it's all about the tiny stuff for lands, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these tiny costs that build up that always get to me.
Yeah. All right, so let's rewind it. I like to make this chronological. It's just the easiest way for me to
Yeah.
try to stay in line here. So we'll start with this esports gaming world. Is this something that you have always done? Were you into games as a kid? Did you have a console? Walk us through that timeline. Or is gaming something that you developed an interest for later on in life?
So I kind of I'm going to answer this by I'd say an attitude I see often
Hmm.
on Twitter from people who get kind of frustrated where they're like, "Man, gaming sucks up so much of my time. I wonder what I could have done without it." Da da da.
Yeah,
Da.
yeah,
And I relate to some of that, but also because when I was younger, I definitely had moments where before consoles were a little bit more affordable. Because I know
yeah,
if you adjust prices for like current value of the dollar, some of those old consoles, especially the next gen ones when they started coming out, really expensive. So like I went without gaming for a very long time, very active, did a lot of soccer on a lot of different teams through high school into college. And once I got a console, that was nice because when I didn't have soccer, I felt like I was just bored out of my mind at home. Like I could read, I did read a decent amount, but I don't know how many people relate to this, but I swear, like the more I got into school, and especially in college, and eventually into grad school, when you're reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages a week, eventually it's just like I don't have the interest of reading further. Like I know it's for fun and I know it's an escapism thing, but for me, I can
yeah,
never motivate myself again to get into books outside of when I'm on an airplane, when I'm literally like, okay, it's either pay money to access the internet or read for free. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can read. But I definitely read a lot growing up. Once I got into video games, I think I liked it because it was a medium of entertainment that was also interactive. And I liked the aspect that you could experience a story like you would with a movie or a TV show, but you could control the outcome. You could like walk through a character's decisions, or you could play FIFA, and it's not just you sitting back and watching soccer; it's you dictating the outcome. And I think
Hmm.
it kind of I think that type of video games is why I like to. It's how I market it actually to people who don't play video games because a lot of people watch Netflix and they're on their phone. I'm
Yeah.
like, why are you on your phone? You're like, I don't know. It just feels like I should be doing something else. That's what video games does. Like, I'm not on my phone while I'm playing video games because you are fully engaged. And
Hmm.
I think that really appealed to me. So I wasn't into video games in the beginning, but I think in high school, really dove into it. And I think ever since then, it's just kind of been a staple hobby because it's both time expensive and that it can like be a hobby that fills up your day
Yeah.
while also being something that I think you can experience like deep emotional connections with art and not just,
Right.
you know, run and shoot, casual arcade type vibes.
Yeah. What were some of the games that you liked to play when you first got started?
My first ever console, I remember that my parents got me was a PlayStation 2, the OG slim ones, like the super small
Hmm.
ones. And my sisters love like Dance Dance Revolution, which is
Yeah.
a game I only played with them. But the first ever game I got, which turned into a game series I loved, is Ratchet and Clank. If you
Okay.
know the
Yeah.
series, like nowadays I don't really play them that much. I've tried to, and they're just like not. They don't hit the same. But
Mhm.
that series I absolutely loved. It was they've people have never played it. In short, just very goofy, very funny game, run and
Yeah.
shoot kind of arcade game. But it was like one of the first story based games that really made me like connect with the idea of just like, oh, story-based games can actually be pretty deep and actually take a decent amount of time and also have that completionist angle of collecting random stuff throughout the game, upgrading weapons, and that was my initial hook for sure. I think
Yeah.
I definitely became a COD kid later on
Yeah.
because I think socially it's hard to not run into a crowd of people, especially if you're a dude in high school where a lot of people
Hmm.
don't touch that game.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like so I think almost I think almost every person that I've talked to so far did game growing up, and I think some more than others, if I remember
Mhm.
everything right. But it does seem like a just a huge portion, definitely a majority of individuals highlight either Call of Duty or Halo, and it
Yeah.
feels like it's always that like 12 to 18, somewhere in that range, and it just like a lot of people outline or recount how it just like took over their life almost.
Mhm.
Like summer's hit, school's out, Call of Duty, 9 hours a day.
Yep. It I've never felt more seen than I remember I watched your episode of this series with Karma, and Karma had the exact same path as me. Like, well, Karma's had like really crazy competitive, so you guys should definitely watch that video on Hoodie's channel if you have not already. But um Karma mentioned, yeah, super into COD, played a lot of that one. But then they got into like advanced warfare and like running on the walls. And then I lost interest. And I remember watching that episode. I had it on in another monitor. I was editing and immediately pivoted my head and go, yes, because
Yes.
that is the exact feeling I had where I got to college sophomore year. And there was like the advanced warfare came out, and then there was infinite warfare and all this other stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I despise this. And I'm like, maybe I'm just like, I don't get it yet. But then I just never got back into it. And that was the moment I fell off. Loki, if those games didn't happen, I don't think I would ever touch Rocket League. I
Oh,
definitely feel like I would
okay.
have just because I've always been someone who played one or two games.
Yeah.
I like just played one main game and then occasionally I would divert, play a little something else, and then go back to my main game. COD was that for me. I don't think I would have ever touched Rocket League if that didn't happen.
So after take us on that journey then after Call of Duty, how do you find Rocket League?
Uh, I still played Call of Duty throughout those games that I didn't like because
Yeah.
my friends played it. So at least you could like, I mean, I didn't really enjoy playing it by myself, but it was like a good way of like bonding with my friends who also were at
Yeah.
college or friends I had abroad, and also and like friends who moved to Europe or something. We could play on ping, but still like play with each other and chat in a VC. But eventually, I just got really sick of it. I just did not like the game, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of getting tired for me, particularly because the one thing that really appealed to me, and I think honestly, the thing that Rocket League has captured better than any game or esport that I've really been a part of is there's certain kills in Call or deaths you receive in Call of Duty where you're running down the field, you're running down a hallway or some lane, and then suddenly a grenade just drops on you and you die. And in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm like, this is rough because no amount of reaction time in the world would allow me to survive there. Like
Right.
that is just pure chance that someone just aimed at the sky, chucked a grenade, and it just happened to land right on top of your forehead right as it explodes. And I'm thinking to myself, that isn't necessarily skill based. That was more
Yeah.
so someone just being like, let's chuck and pray. Someone's probably there. And it worked. And to me, that always felt rough because it's like I could be the best player in the lobby and still die to that. Like
Yeah.
that is a pure chance. But then when I saw Rocket League in the beginning, I'm like, this is cool. I played soccer growing up. This is advertised as car soccer or whatever. Oh, these cars can fly. That's kind of cool. And then I started realizing like it's not just Call of Duty where right stick is aim left, right, up, down, where that's more or less a majority of your control and aim and skill.
Yeah.
But every single micro movement of Rocket League is controlled by air rolling and your yaw and pitch and everything. And that blew my mind. But then when it really settled in, like 100 hours in, I'm like, oh, wait, there's literally no RNG. There's no ults. There's no
Yeah.
specialty skills. It's literally just differences in hitbox and where you spawn on demos. I'm like, that blew my mind as a kid. Like the
Mm-hmm.
idea that you can make a game this tight in terms of the kind of like how insular it is in terms of
Yeah.
like outside effects of how you play the game. If you lose, it's because your team played worse than the other team, and that was so rewarding to me. And once that realization clicked, I like literally knew like I'm not touching Call of Duty. like I will 100%. This is like the game I will be grinding like
Yeah.
every single day.
I 100% agree. I mean, I could not have said it better. I think, I didn't really play games growing up. I played sports. And
Mhm.
in a way, I think Rocket League's even more pure than sports because, like, there's variation from human body to human body and
Oh yeah,
coordination and athleticism, etc. But it reminded me very much of sports where, like, there's not really RNG in sports either, right? Like you train beforehand and like I said, different bodies and different people are gifted with different abilities. But ultimately it's you and your team's game plan and then your execution of that game plan versus the other team and the same stuff. And Rocket League is it's just sports, but just translated into that digital medium. And obviously it emulates a sport as well. And so, man, seriously, the first moment that I played, I was hooked. It was so much fun. Me and my friends played Chaos on one screen, so you had your little
oh
box.
my gosh.
And it was just a great time, man. And so, I actually didn't even own a console at the time, and I would like go to my friends' places when they went to work, so I could go play Rocket League.
Okay. Yeah.
Until eventually it was like, okay, I gotta figure something out, so I went and got a used one. But yeah, man, it's such an incredible game, and I love the way that you articulated it because I do think that it's like I don't know what word to use, but it's like a thing that Rocket League captured and captures the word that you use. I don't know what to call it, but it's like this feeling or experience where, like you said, there's no excuse and there's nothing that you can get angry at other than just like, I mean, well, that's probably not true because people get angry at teammates or whatever else. But
Yeah.
it's just like there's no variation. It's just you and the ball versus the opponent, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I that's the thing that I really always enjoyed. Growing up, I actually was weirdly enough. I don't play it now. My stream has been asking me to, but I played a lot of chess, and that's
Okay.
because in a lot of like sports theory, there is if you talk about variance, aka like just statistical variance,
Mm-hmm.
I would say like in terms of what makes outcomes. Typically, it's luck plus skill equals the outcome of a sporting event,
Right.
and on a scale there's like pure gambling, which is just pure chance, almost no skill.
Yeah.
You could argue, if especially with roulette or something, there's no skill involved with that. But chess is on the far side as being a 100% skill based game. And
Right.
the only influence that does matter, if you think about it in terms of like odds, is who moves first. So for
Right.
white, and which is why you change who's white throughout a chess match in like tournaments. But that to me was really something that I really liked early on, is the idea that like I'm just outthinking you. I am outplaying you. I'm like baiting you into traps. I'm like feinting for certain things and then taking other pieces. I have these long plans I'm executing, and I loved that idea. And I think that's what really I like to self-describe myself as like an analytical person. Like
Yeah.
I think that's just how my brain works. It's why I'm
Yeah.
into what I eventually majored and went to grad school for. But like that really captured that. And for Rocket League, it's not necessarily that you can like be that analytical like with chess, but it felt like it was like everything in this game is within my control, especially in like a 1v1, for example. It's
Uh-huh.
literally just you beating out your opponent. It's you outthinking them, it's you outmeching them.
Yeah.
And I've never touched a game in which it really felt like I am every single time I lose, I understand why I lost.
And it is like they did such a good job of balancing like what you're describing about chess, but then also precision, accuracy, like mechanical aspect of games.
Yeah.
And then you combine those two to determine the outcome, whether it's a win or a loss. Yeah, incredible game. I think Rocket League's so awesome. Obviously, that's why we're still here. So, um, is there, since you've started playing Rocket League, is there any other games that you play alongside it? Is there anything that has pulled your attention in a similar manner to Rocket League, or has it pretty much just been, for me, like I said, I didn't really play any other games, and Rocket League is it for me. I've got like 13,000 hours since 2016, and it's just been pure Rocket League only.
I still, when Rocket League first came out, I played it kind of in tangentially in parallel, whatever you'd like to describe, but like
Yeah.
it was very much a tangent from COD, and then it eventually became something I played similarly, and then I realized I just like Rocket League more. But
Yeah.
then throughout me playing it, there definitely was moments I liked, because I still owned a PS4 was my first next gen console. It was the first thing I actually bought, but the games that always I really liked is I think I have a glitch in my brain. I only like challenging games. I can't.
Yeah.
I envy so much streamers, and I don't know if you feel this, but I envy so much streamers that can just sit down with like Minecraft and just
Sure.
have like a relaxing, non-competitive game. Because for
Yeah.
me,
Just
my
have fun.
brain needs some form of challenge or like competition aspect. And so for me, the game that my college roommate got me into was Dark Souls, and I
Oh.
love Dark Souls. Dark Souls
Okay.
1, 2, 3, Elden
That's
Ring,
like
Bloodborne.
that's
Like,
like the thing about them is that they're hard.
yes, and I love those games. I've played them all. I've beaten them all. I've replayed them all. And people might say, like, for a lot of games, oh, they're not replayable. It's the same story. I know where the beats are going to go. Dark Souls is more like it's just fun because you get to experiment. Like, oh, you played on this type of character. Now you're just going to re-roll and do something else. You can do a challenge run. There's
Yeah.
people who could beat the game just using a torch, like one of the lowest damage weapons. Like, it's endlessly interesting. And then you get into speed running, looking at how people optimize stuff. Like,
Yeah.
all of that was really interesting to me. I played the new God of War. I never touched the old ones, but like the rebooted PS4, PS5 God of Wars I've gotten really into. I think probably the biggest time suck right now, though, for me is rediscovering my Switch. I bought it back in the day for Breath of the Wild, and then I stopped playing it a bit. I saw some speedruns of it. I started playing it again, and then I got really into it. And then Tears of the Kingdom announcement dropped, and I'm like, I'm so there. And so anytime you do not see me on stream, or if you're wondering like, hey, what's he doing? If I'm probably either editing something for YouTube or I am specifically playing Tears of the Kingdom, just sitting on my couch as my cats lay on me and just grinding out quests. Because
Yeah.
it's just great to have a game that's has like that nice familiar universe, but just such a massive world to explore with a lot of reward for exploration as well, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Like I said, I have not really dabbled in any other games, but I see some clips and like highlights of Tears of the Kingdom, whether it's on just viral stuff on Twitter or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Like that is a crazy game. It
Oh, yeah.
feels like, I mean, this may just be obvious, but it just feels like another world just there. Like I see people building all kinds of things together that I think were probably never intended to go together, and then they make some other thing. It just looks wild.
I have a lot of issues with Nintendo and how they operate, like their business sometimes, but I gotta say, some of their developers that they got at the studios, they're wizards. Like my friends work in game design,
Yeah.
and they're looking at Tears of the Kingdom, they're like, I do not know how you're running a game that complex, with that many moving parts, especially with the new building mechanic where you're like adding in all these things, and how it works so intuitively that you can attach a steering wheel to anything you create, and it works actually exactly how you'd expect it to on a hardware like the Switch, which is basically like a modern toaster oven version of processing power.
Yeah.
They're like, I genuinely don't know how they made a game this polished on basically the weakest console by far that you can possibly buy. Like, I don't understand how they did it. And I'm like, it's because they're just actually that good.
Yeah.
they're just
wizards.
actually incredible. Like, as much as people, also Nintendo has the game on I'm a PC gamer. I'd recommend everyone else get a PC game. But the moment I have someone who I need to introduce to gaming or like get an
Mm-hmm.
accessible title, I'm
Right.
like, that's why you need to Switch.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do make probably the best games to like intro people into the concept of gaming
Mhm.
instead of just chucking them into the deep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The PC stuff can definitely be intimidating. I moved over a couple years after I initially got that Xbox in 2016, and it's a lot. It's definitely a lot to learn. Steam is intimidating. Like when you are new to it,
Yeah.
it's like it just looks foreign. You know, the it's so different from like console UI that it's very just like I don't know, just very easy on the eyes and very simple uh to navigate, I think. But yeah, Steam is anyways, the PC definitely I mean, should we get into that? Is this the superior machine?
I never understood the PC Master Race jokes on Reddit until I got a PC because I do have to realize like
There's just it's just capable of so much more, right?
it's capable of so much more. It's obviously more powerful. The thing for me that really made me say I'm never going back was, well, actually two things. One was if for people who, I think this is also a common pipeline for gamers, you start at a console because it's cheaper. Your parents don't want to buy
Yeah,
you a
yeah.
$1,000 PC. They're like, oh, we'll just spend $400 on a console or something. Uh, they you start playing on it. That's great. And then I bought my first like starter PC, super basic. I think I did have an i7, but like everything else was pretty bare bones. Like entry level graphics card.
Yeah.
And I just remember playing on that for a while. And then my buddy was like, hey, do you want to play? I only have my PS4. So I went back to the console and noticing the input lag differences.
It's
That
horrible.
you can't go back after that.
No.
Like you can go from console to PC. And honestly, I didn't notice it much. I
No,
did
me
not
same.
notice a difference. But the moment I went back, even though people like it's only like 100 milliseconds, it's only 150, it feels like it's a full second
It
between you moving. It's mind blowing.
there's enough time where I have hit a button and in my mind I have a reaction of why has it not happened?
Yes.
And then it happens. Like there's enough time for my mind to process. I have jumped. The car hasn't jumped.
Yes.
Now it's jumped. You're right. It's crazy. And it was wild to think that you just didn't like you were just accustomed to it and you didn't notice it at the time. You know, you just played and I guess it's just because like you didn't know it could be more efficient. You know, your body hadn't I don't know. I'm sure there's some science there, but all right, let's pivot off of this. So, started some games around the high school time, mostly the Call of Duty stuff. Transitioned to Rocket League, and then mostly been Rocket League since. When did you start playing? Actually,
I was 2016. I specifically remember the ads for like kind of like alpha and beta stuff, and I
yeah.
just never did it. And
Oh
obviously,
no,
looking back with the value of alpha
of
boosts and
course.
everything, and what a prestige item that is, like
Oh
a
my
status
goodness.
symbol, I'm so angry at myself because I definitely looked at it and be
You
like,
were already on
that's kind of
PC.
dope. Yeah. Well, no, I was on console for a while, and
Oh,
then
okay.
junior year, I think,
Yeah.
of college, which was 20. Uh, that is 2016 for me. I was like, oh, let's get Rocket League. I did play it on the PS4 a bit, but then switched over to my PC. And yeah, I started pretty early and it was pretty casual play for a while. But yeah, that definitely was the moment I got into it. It was definitely like about 2016 because I distinctly
Yeah.
remember being off campus apartment, which was only allowed junior year. So that must have been
Right. Right.
around
You know the
2016.
time. That's funny.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what are some other interests of yours outside of this gaming and esports world?
It's tough because I love soccer. I grew up with it.
Hmm?
I played through high school. I played in uh, travel teams, premier teams, academy teams. I played up into, I pretty much chose my college almost exclusively off of where I was likely to be able to play NCAA.
Yeah.
And I followed a lot of Premier League soccer over in England. I followed a decent amount of Spanish La Liga. I even watched League One in France for a little bit because my parents had just good enough of a cable package to be able to watch all those, but like
Right.
not good enough to watch like super niche stuff. So I watched a lot of it, but I learned that, and this is probably going to be the same as Rocket League if I ever somehow find myself getting bent out of shape on one end of it. But the more I played soccer, the more I wanted to watch it, and then the more I watched it, the more I wanted to play. So it was like this cycle that motivated
Yeah.
the other side of
Yeah.
it. And so when I played it a lot, I was constantly like involved with things. And nowadays, I got injured in college. It kind of ended my playing career,
Yeah.
and ever since then, I kind of got out of it. But I used to be massive into sports, and now I still have like the appreciation of sports. Like I
Sure.
can get really into any event that I understand a decent amount of the background of.
Yeah.
Um, I'm especially uh, like respect people like Direct in the Rocket League communities,
Mm.
statistician wizard. Shout out to Direct, one of my favorite people in
Yeah.
Twitter accounts. But the appreciation of statistics and just the marveling of human ability
Mm.
in traditional sports is crazy. There's a YouTuber that low key I've told people I've tried to model my content after is Jimmy High Roller. He does NBA analysis,
Mhm.
and it is by far the most engaging YouTube channel I watch on the entirety of that site. There's no other videos I will watch 100% watch time like on every
Yeah.
single video other than him, because he just dives deep into like statistically how this one player is like incredibly detailed in this one way, how dominant they were in this aspect, or how
Yeah.
certain players compare, how different eras, just think pieces, backs up with data, all these great charts. And of course, I'm a nerd. I worked in psych and I worked in data visualization for a while. So I'm
Yeah.
like, man, it's like this is just the best. This is a fusion of like everything I love, like
Yeah.
competitive sports, stats, like data analysis. So it really works for me. But I would say a lot of the outside stuff I like is still sports is still a huge
Mhm.
draw for me. If I was more motivated, I would with my time and less militant about being efficient, I would definitely be probably seeking out like a men's league playing for soccer around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I was very big into sports as a player, but I did not care at all to consume any of it, which I don't know, but I think it's kind of rare. I feel like most of the folks that play sports, most times I feel like they always expressed interest in watching the professional play. You know, they've got a certain player that they wish they could be or
Mhm.
whatever. I just my problem when I was a kid is I could not sit still. I did not have the patience
Yeah.
to watch a movie or, you know, NBA, NFL, whatever. I just did not. I did not care to sit still. I wanted to go ride my bike. I wanted to go, hit rocks with an old bat or something. I just did not want to sit still. So I didn't ever watch, but I did love playing. Um, so with that being said, what are some of the um, or what are some pieces of content? You know, you mentioned this Jimmy High Roller and it's sports. Would you say that most of the content that you consume is either like career focused, so like Rocket League esports stuff, um, or is there some other recreational content? Like, what do you like to do as far as movies, shows, content consumption?
Um, I feel like Twitch and YouTube has actually taken over a massive amount of my media diet. If I have subscriptions to streaming platforms, it's usually more like background noise. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember. I'm trying to remember the last time I've actually binged a show. Was on my own accord. Is been a
Yeah.
while. I remember watching a lot of Wednesday, but I think it's because me and my girlfriend at the time were looking for stuff to watch, like while we're
Right.
eating, and it was like Wednesday was the thing that we watched, and or something, or we'd watch like some other show that came out. But I would say I watch a lot of reruns of Criminal Minds, which again
Okay.
I've been involved with psychology for a while, so I'm just into
Yeah.
the criminal psych aspect of it. There's some occasional reruns of like Community that I like. It's good comedy, good background, a lot of rewatchable shows. But um, back in the day, my girlfriend was a massive in high school. Even my girlfriend at the time was a massive like movie critic, wannabe person. In that, like,
Okay.
very good at art analysis, very good at like picking apart themes and motifs. And so I watched a lot of Oscar. We watched every single Oscar nominated movie every year, and always been a fan of film. All my friends growing, it was weird. I was the only friend in my friend group that was like an athlete. Everyone else was like an art nerd. Looking back, it was
Oh,
very
okay.
strange. Every single one of my friends was like very talented artist. They were like a cinematographer person. They went to film school. They went to some performing arts thing. Um, and I was just the one guy with no artistic talent, but I was friends with them. So I got really into film and analysis. But over time, I feel like I've kind of walked away from that. But I think it goes
Yeah.
back to the idea that those are usually social activities for me, like watching it with someone,
Yeah.
or it's something I do in the background, like while I'm doing something else. And so therefore I'm not like 100%
Yeah.
focused on the show.
Yeah. Okay. Any anime?
Anime is the one thing I've not even touched at all. The only
Oh
time I've
no.
watched anime though is as a kid. Toonami, shout out Toonami
Yeah.
on Cartoon Network. Naruto and old school Dragon Ball Z. I watched a lot of. I
Yeah,
cannot tell you a lot about storylines, or
sure.
I believe they're called arcs. That a lot of like they call like I can't tell you a lot about those, but I relate to a lot of Dragon Ball Z media now of
Yeah,
like how the shows are structured. Naruto about like certain battles or characters. I'll screw up some of the names occasionally. People in my chat will be like, "Oh, that's Sasuke," and I'm like, "Sorry, I just remember
yeah.
moody
It's been
black
a
haired
while.
guy wearing navy blue or whatever." Like, but there are shows I'm into. I understand the appeal, but it's just I don't get into a lot of media in general. So it's
Yeah,
like with anime, I'm like, I don't know if there's anything that really like intrigues me enough to really dip into that.
yeah, yeah. I totally get that. I was very against it for a long time. I had a group of buddies in high school that, I mean, it was just sports, right? Like, you know,
Mhm.
I'm spending time with these people. These are who my friends are. And I had, you know, I feel like I was very fortunate. I had great friendships. But then when I got to college, the buddies that I had were very, very different from the ones I had in high school. And they introduced me to a lot of new things. And one of the things that they were pushing for a while is anime. And I just, you know, the standard stuff, like I'm not watching cartoons, whatever.
Mhm.
And then eventually I caved. And man, as soon as I did, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand. And I have been hooked ever since. It's, I mean, outside of like I said, when I asked a question, outside of like work media consumption, which is, and I don't want it to, it's not work. I'm enjoying watching RLCS,
Yes.
but it's part of the job, right? Like I need to
Yes.
be in tune and, you know, the same thing with like keeping up with other streamers and peers around the space, just seeing what's going on. Like, I'm not saying I don't enjoy it. I do, but that's all tied into just like the career. The only media that I consume, like totally recreationally on my own, is anime. I don't have like a Netflix subscription. I don't have a Hulu subscription. No HBO or Disney or nothing like that. Just anime. I have that Crunchyroll subscription, Crunchyroll
Crunchyroll,
Premium,
yeah.
and I just been. I actually I just finished a rewatch of One Piece.
That I think if anyone understands how long that show's been on, that's impressive. That's not only like the finish, but the
I
rewatch
just
of it.
finished a rewatch. Man, I
Are
was
you are you are you watching the filler episodes? Or are
on
you
the
just watching
on the
like the
first
the
go,
watch and guide
yes.
ones?
The first go, yes. The second go, no. The second
Okay.
go was very much like I don't have a word for it, but just I would skip through and find what I wanted to see, and
Yeah.
um, especially as I got deeper into the story. So
Mhm.
like the closer to what I had just seen recently, like I didn't need to see much of it because I just watched it,
Yeah.
or more recently watched it, and so you know once I got to a certain level, I was pretty much skipping like 60% of it and just watching battles. You know, so
Yeah.
definitely not a full rewatch, but just finished that up and started some new shows, which I'm excited about. Um, Part of what I like about those is when they're really long like that, and you can dive in for a long time and just be engulfed in this universe. Um, you know, I find it so fun. But it's been nice because as I've been on this rewatch, there's been quite a bit come out that you know now I kind of have like a backlog of things that I can put on the to do list or to watch list. So you said you've seen quite a few movies, shows, etc., but it's not really something that you are super interested in. How do you feel about music?
Music I feel like has the advent of Spotify I think has crippled my daily routine in terms of and I don't know if this is just like me being a millennial and people are like you're so attached to your digital devices, you're so desperate to but like I can't do normal activities without music. Like I can't
Yeah,
like walk around my home doing chores, I'm listening to music. I have the
yeah,
Bluetooth headphones in, I'm listening to music. I am doing chores around the house, I'm listening to music. I'm showering, I have a video playing in the background or music playing. I'm cooking, there's music. Like there's always something. And I don't know if it's like, and it's not even like some, at least not consciously, it's not like I can't be alone with my thoughts. I can't be alone
right,
with the silence of the world. It's literally just like it's just nice to have music to jam to. So
yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily say I, I wouldn't say I have unconventional taste by any means because I don't want to paint myself as like I don't listen to like outside the curve stuff because pop music's still great. Like
Yeah.
whatever, like the occasion there's a song I'm like, oh, this is catchy because it's designed to be like that. But
Right.
growing up, I didn't have a car until I graduated college, so I didn't listen to a lot of radio, and it just became a pattern to not do that. Especially now that all cars have auxiliary cords, why would I listen to
Yeah.
random
Yeah.
music with commercials when I could just plug in my own? But because of that, I really stopped listening to radio around like I don't know 2016 or something, and so past that, there'd be a lot of people who are like, "Oh, have you heard the new blah blah blah? Oh, what about this rapper, this new rapper?" And I'm like, I have never heard of
No
these
clue.
people. Like sometimes, like there's a lot of people that a lot of that makes me feel older than anything else. My students I used to teach,
Uh-huh.
and also all the younger pros in the RLC and on Twitter, they'll be
Yeah.
tweeting out like, "Man, this Lil Uzi Vert verse is crazy," and I'm like, "Who is that?" And I'm thinking this probably like some underground person. I Google it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is like a big person," or like it's like just that happens all the time. So for me,
Yeah.
a lot I would define a lot of my music as like indie pop or like kind of like lower level artists and like hip hop or something, but like
Mm.
not even like that deep of a run. I would say a lot of my music is like indie or like EDM because
Okay.
it's a lot of YouTube channels that like market themselves specifically for like this is smaller DJs or EDM artists that have just come
Yeah.
out with something, and that kind of has just been I like high energy stuff, I guess, feel good
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of some artists, maybe?
There's an artist, Quinn92. He's
Okay.
probably my favorite artist. It's Quinn space XCII. And they are that was the first concert I've ever been to that I
Yeah.
bought tickets for on purpose. I've been dragged to a couple growing up, but
Yeah.
that was like my first artist I got. They're one of the few artists, and apparently this is a rare phenomenon. My only Reddit clout ever was me posting it on Ask Reddit and asking, is there because of a Quinn92 album, I was like, is there any artist you've ever listened to an album and you've liked every single song? Because that had never happened to me before. There's
Yeah.
usually like I listen to a song, even an artist I love, I'll listen to it and then like 4 album tracks in, I'm like, I don't like that one, and you'll just like skip it,
Yeah.
and you realize
Yeah.
you only like 75% of it or 60% of it. Um, Quinn92 is one of the few artists where I think every single album I think I've liked every single one, or at the very least, I didn't dislike any of the
Right.
tracks.
Right.
And so that to me is really good. It's like a very much just like kind of laid back pop-ish type of sound, but not I would say it's heavily I don't want to say manufactured, that's the wrong word, but
Yeah.
as heavily kind of like tuned to be like this is made by some industry guy who knows this is
Sure.
exactly how a song sounds. I feel like when you listen to a
Yeah.
beat in indie music, it's always unique. Like I haven't really heard that before. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing that quite sounds like that. AJR is I think another album like that. Their production is very unique to them. I think you could identify theirs among like a crowd of sounds.
Yeah. I love music as well, and I'm very similar. Where like I'll turn it on in the shower, and if I'm cleaning or whatever. So I'm fairly similar in that regard. I would say that my taste is probably I don't know if this is the right word, but I don't know what else to use, but like a little more basic. Where I used to love your like most mainstream. I'm a hip hop person. I love hip hop music. But you're like most mainstream artists, Lil Wayne. I was like, it was an obsession. I mean, it was ridiculous. His clever punchlines and little puns and things are just I loved them. But as I got older, I started to enjoy a little bit more thought provoking hip hop.
Mhm.
I actually felt like it was educating me a lot. Teaching me about things that I otherwise probably wouldn't have heard about or known about. But I am starting to try to dive in a little bit deeper, find some artists that maybe don't have as much mainstream success. But you mentioned like this unique production, and I want to ask if you have heard of JPEG Mafia.
I have heard of, but I could not name a song off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
So I don't know how much you like hip hop, but if you do, their JPEG's most recent album is called "Scaring the Hose," but it's very unique production as well. And I think if I'm understanding correct, some of the things that you're outlining as far as artists, like it's kind of cookie cutter or template. Like they know that this style of production, like boom, 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 they have this formula that formulaic. Maybe that's a good word for it. But they know that this is going to hit. They know that this is going to land on the radio. They know that this is going to land with, this demographic, whatever. That most recent album at the very least, and I haven't listened to a ton of their stuff, but the most recent album definitely does not have that formulaic approach. It is very unique. It is very out there. The first time I heard it, because my ears were not used to that. I was very off put by it, and I was like, it was. I almost want to say it was hard. It was like challenging to listen to because it's so just there's so much going on, and it's not as what our ears want, right?
Yeah.
But once I gave it some more time, and once I understood more what I was listening to, and the fact that like the experimentation is the point, I started to appreciate it a little bit more. So I really love it. I still have it in my rotation now, and if you like that kind of stuff, hip hop and experimental type stuff, maybe give it a try. Okay, well, what about traveling? Have you done much traveling? Is that something that you're interested in? I know that we've gone to a few RLCS events. For me, I have not done a ton of traveling. I've gone to Florida a few times with friends and whatnot, just hit the beach, and then RLCS stuff, which I have a ton of fun with, but that's like half travel, you know what I mean? Like you're going for the event, and I don't do a whole lot of exploring while I'm there. So my travel experiences is relatively minimal, but I will say what I have done, I very much enjoyed, and I would love to do more in the future. So what is your perspective towards travel?
I personally am someone who likes traveling in a very specific lens, I would say,
Okay.
because I I don't mind the idea of going somewhere new, seeing what it's whatever. But there is like a certain point where the exhaustion of
Mhm.
traveling gets to me a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is just me being an introvert or being like more hermited because I do tend to like stay near the home base, like stay
Yeah.
indoors a bit. Gets to me, but like going to lands, I just get like a huge burst of energy. I want to go out and I want to see people. I want to hang out with people. I want to do that. If I work a land as a commentator, the same thing,
Yeah.
for the most part. And I like that, but I don't have that like wanderlust that some people have that
Sure.
they're like,
Sure.
I want to go to Thailand, see all this
Yeah.
crazy stuff. I want to go to Indonesia. I want to go to Japan. I'm like, that'd be cool if, maybe I worked a gig there, like there was some Japanese event or something, like that'd be cool. I've never been to Tokyo. I've never been to all these different places, but like I don't really have a drive to do that. It's more so like if I'm popping in, that's great.
Mhm.
Partially because I think the less I don't know, this is like I don't know, this is even a pessimistic or like a negative view, but like I feel like the more you see of places, the less wondrous they are.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, as someone who grew up in New York State, been to New York City a lot. New York City is a great place to visit. But if you stay there for an extended period of time, I think people realize this city's kind of bad. Like it's way too many people,
Yeah.
kind of dirty, super loud all the time. And for some people, that's what they want. But like, I'm like, New York City is a great place. It's the reason. There's a reason. Let's say that people try to keep you corralled at like Times Square or like
Yeah.
on Canal Street or something. Like just going like to food. Like the more you're in a city that crowded, I think you start to notice the cracks. And for me, it's like, yeah, go 3, 4 days in San Diego. That'd be great. If I had to live in San Diego, I'd be broke. Like no
Right.
shot of
Right.
affording that place. Like
Yeah.
it's start noticing all those tiny things like, oh, my breakfast sandwich, which is $6 in my hometown, is like 15, 20 at this place in Cali. Like I'd never, you just don't even think about it in the moment. But
Mhm.
I think, I don't know, there's a lot of things that, I don't know, maybe it's my mind justifying this is why you shouldn't travel too much. But it's definitely for me, like, I don't know, I've just never had that itch to like really
Yeah.
go all these different places. Like
When
I'm good where I am.
right when you were younger, did your family do much traveling?
Florida apparently. I remember my father going to Disney. We went to I think it's World in Florida, Disney World, Florida, like Orlando, and that was super fun. But my main memory of it was actually uh, the reality of how expensive that stuff is. Like for everything,
Right.
flights, resorts, even food. Like it felt like every single time my dad got a check, he was just like, like just like contemplating how much debt he's going to be in, like how much he's loading up a credit
Yeah.
card on this, and he's just like every single time I just felt like I saw this like mixture of like hidden pain and like also
Uh-huh.
like this is we're just keeping a happy face. Like he had fun, obviously it's fun hanging out with your kids and seeing them react to it, but
Yeah.
those trips were painted with that. But we went to a place called Sanibel Island. I remember a decent amount of times. I don't
Yeah.
know even know if that's a popular place, but I do remember going there. So I do have memories of traveling, but
Yeah.
my family didn't do as much. I grew up in a pretty rich suburb, but my parents were by far like the lowest rung of that
Sure.
economic ladder within that area. We
Yeah.
lived like right outside like a curve of good neighborhoods in the district, but
Mhm.
my friends were like, "Oh, it's Labor Day weekend. We're going to Paris for like 2 days," and I'm like, and meanwhile, my parents are like, "Hey, it's summer vacation. We're gonna maybe go the next town over," and I'm like, "Let's go." So it's definitely weird to see the levels
Right.
of affordability and travel.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think the reason I asked why, uh, or if you had done a lot of traveling, because I think obviously a lot of times I think it's, well, let me say this. I think it's very easy to romanticize things that you haven't experienced yet. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I haven't done a lot of traveling. And so I feel very, um, like enthusiastic about it. Like I want to do it. You know, I have a strong desire for it. And that's why I asked, because I feel like maybe once I did it a lot, maybe I wouldn't feel that way. I don't know. I could say that the trip that stands out the most to me, like I've done some baseball traveling all around Arkansas, but that's like, I don't know. It's just like Arkansas point two. You know what I mean? It's the same thing everywhere down
Yeah.
here. And then the beach is awesome. I love the beach. It's so cool. Um, but I went to season 7, Newark, and I went 2 days early. And I have a friend that lives in New York, and that for me was just like, whoa. You know,
Yeah.
I come from Arkansas, and then seeing, and you said it too. You said there's too many people, dude. I'd never seen that many humans, like that
Oh
many
yeah.
actual people just walking around was freaking mind boggling. And I think that experience and like how I felt while I was there is what gives me that strong desire to want to. I think it's like chasing a high, right? Like I felt
Oh
that,
yeah.
and I want to feel that again, in a new place. And it was just so. It was so unique. It was so different. It was so many things that I had never seen before, never crossed my mind. I didn't know this existed. I didn't know people lived like this. I didn't know. I had never seen a subway before, and so yeah, I think that for me was like a very pivotal moment, I guess. And so I would like to replicate it. But um, so you said you played soccer. Do you have any big moments from your childhood that stand out to you from that time playing, or any other sport for that matter? And then you said, did you say that you were looking, like the reason that you looked for specific schools was where you could play? Is that right?
Yeah, so this is also going to get into a tale I tell to my stream as life lessons because I have a lot of teenagers
Yeah.
who watch me, but they um, I talk about this because growing up I played baseball a lot. My father
Okay.
liked my father. I'm convinced that I'm 2 years. My sisters are 2 years apart, and I'm 6 years away from, and 6 and 8 years away from my sisters. So based on that timeline, I almost guarantee my father was like, I wanted a son to model to get him into sports I like, and I
Mhm.
can't believe I've got 2 daughters. My mom's like, fine, we'll have another kid. So I'm almost guaranteed that's exactly why I'm so far apart. But
Yeah.
because of that, my dad was like trying to get me into football. Never got into football. Uh, he wanted me in baseball because it's like second favorite sport, and I kind of liked baseball, but to me it was too slow. It felt like
Yeah.
you were just sitting around for a
Yeah.
while. Like
Totally
I
get that.
liked the I will say hitting a baseball is, in terms of human feats of like hand-eye coordination and timing and the abilities to recognize where to swing and how to swing on
Yeah.
something you can barely even consciously comprehend. That to me scientifically is amazing, but as a
Yeah.
sport, I have no interest in it. So,
Yeah.
well, no interest. I'll watch baseball during playoffs or something, but peripherally, I kind of got out of it. Got into soccer, played a lot of that, and then I got up to college, and I was playing on premier teams, which I don't know the term, but premier academy. It's like you're paying a decent amount of money paying on these teams because in U.S. soccer is very much pay to win, but to get on good teams. But for U.S. soccer, at least for my local term, it's called academy soccer. You pay a lot to play on this team. Really good other players. You travel to tournaments. You play in like state ranked, national ranked teams in front of college scouts. And from playing it though, I had a couple scouts from like other schools like contact me or come up to me and say like, "Hey, hi, blah, 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 I'm this person. Here's my email, whatever."
Yeah.
And I had a couple good schools reach out to me, like in the Northeast area. I had some schools down south, some D2 schools, some D1 schools, a lot of D3 schools. And my girlfriend at the time was like, I think if people have dated for a while in high school, I think you relate to this. Like you feel like that's your first true love, first
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
love in your life. So it's like, oh, this is just going to keep continuing. So
Yeah.
choose a college that's near me. So only go to New York. So I had to reject like a bunch of offers
Oh
from
no.
outside schools because I'm like, I should do this. And meanwhile, my dad's like, oh, don't do that. Like trying like so hard to get me to like, because UConn contacted me and that's like a D1 school,
Yeah.
but they were like not guaranteeing me a spot, but they were like, we're really interested. We want you to do this. And I was like, no, no, thanks. I'm going to stick near my college girlfriend. So I went to a school that was in New York State, 40 minutes away from my hometown. Uh, and I knew the coach there. But then I got there for preseason, injured myself on an
Oh
old back
no.
injury, and realized in that moment that I don't know how well I'd be able to rehab this, and I'd basically have to sit on the bench for a while. And
Yeah.
that eventually led to me just having to admit to the coach, like, I can't do this. He told me, all right, well, then you're not on the team. And I remember that is by far top 3 moments in my life where you realize like you've played soccer for, at least for me, since 3rd grade. Like that was
Yeah.
like not the plan. I was never like I'll be a pro one day, but it was definitely like this is going to be my path for a while, all through college. We'll see what goes on from there. But this the realization that might actually be it. Like you're not going to be playing
Yeah.
that was definitely top 3 like most soul crushing moments in my
Oh
life.
my
Like in terms
goodness.
of like that is because it's a pivot point. It completely
Yeah.
changes where you see yourself going. On top of the fact that I chose this college specifically to be like to to act towards that. But that did become a blessing in disguise, I will say, because uh, I eventually wanted to go on to grad school, and I definitely did not have the work ethic to do that. And talking to other athletes, if you're a student athlete yourself, or even esports athlete, you might relate to this. Very hard to balance doing full time sports and workouts and practices and tape review and everything on top of classwork. If I had to do both that, I definitely would have been a very substandard student.
Yeah.
And I ended up being a pretty good student. So once that was distraction was kind of like removed. So in a way, it was kind of a blessing in disguise going to like a worse, in quotes, academically school, but playing soccer versus not playing soccer and going to like a better school overall for my education. I think that was
Yeah.
something that worked out, but definitely not a not a fun experience. Do not
Yeah.
choose your college though based off of someone you're dating. You can find a way to compromise. You can make long distance work,
I
but
would
all
love to
that.
echo that sentiment. I did the exact same thing.
Hey, there we go.
I dated a girl from 6th grade until my junior year of school of college,
Dang.
and followed her there. And I mean, obviously that did not work out. So, yeah, I completely agree. But I mean, you're totally right. Like you said it. When you have like a long term thing in high school, it just feels like it's almost like you are powerless. Like, how are you at that age? How it would be so difficult to make that decision
Yes.
to say like, no, this isn't a big deal. I'm going to choose something else. Because
I,
at that age, you just don't have like, you just, the perspective that you have towards life is like right here. But for you in that moment, it's all of it. It's everything, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, for anyone listening, like, don't follow them, but also like you're probably going to do it anyway.
I
So,
I mean, that's something I always think about because it's something that um I I don't have these moments, but it's kind of a meme segment, but also it's just kind of fun to talk about because I love this concept. But on sometimes on my stream, we'll do like some person the age of my student
yeah,
or something that's like in their teenage years, maybe early 20s. They ask me like a question about relationships or something, and then I use it as like a podcast way of because a lot of my mods are like late 20s or like 30s or something. I
yeah,
myself am 28, so I'm always like, okay, well, first off, like your 20s, you change a lot. I'm not the same person I was when I was 21 from 23, 23 to 25, 25 to 28. Like you change a lot because it's a very transitory time. You're getting into college, you're going to grad school, you're changing jobs, you're moving states, all that. So it's hard to like find consistency. But even beyond that, relationships are such an interesting thing. Like I think the statistic is on average, people date like 13 people throughout their lifespan or something. And
yeah,
people are like, that's a lot. But I'm like, well, the idea for me felt like, yeah, that is also a lot. But people think of the idea of soulmates as like you click with this person. We're just meant to be with this person. But when you meet someone, you really connect with someone. Like in high school, you date someone who's like, this person's so great. I love being with this person. I think a lot of people, when they get talked to and say, well, you might gotta, you don't know if that person's right for you. You haven't had a lot of comparison points. It's not saying like you're wrong to feel that way, but definitely for me, when I've been dating throughout my life, you start to realize that there's almost like a latent list of pros and cons or qualities you like and dislike that you don't actually realize until you start dating other people. And you start to realize like, oh, there isn't actually like a criteria that people need to meet because that criteria is ever shifting. Like I used to
right,
think I liked this type of girl and I
yeah,
really liked a woman who was this type of energy, liked this type of thing. But then I date someone who's completely different and realize actually I like that maybe even better. And then you date
yeah,
someone else and you're like, oh wait, actually I can like refine what I like now. And
yeah,
it just gives you a lot more insight in how to like find someone who truly works for you. Because I think
yeah,
it's very easy to be distracted and think, no, 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 this is as best it's going to be, all that. But
hmm,
I definitely feel like if people are viewing relationships as like, oh, I'll never get someone that good again, it's not about that. You got to really just, you move on and I think you learn generatively over time that there's this sense of connection that isn't based on set criteria because it develops
Right.
over time and you learn as you get older what you actually like. And I think that only happens through, unfortunately, going through some heartbreak sometimes or going through
Right.
some rough experiences. So I try to tell that to people who come into my chat, very sad boy hours, like,
Yeah.
I just broke up with my girlfriend, it's over. And I'm like, no, homie, like, this will be good for you, like, in a way. It doesn't feel like it. It really doesn't feel like it, but this
Hmm.
will be good for you in the future.
Yeah, and like that is also, or we'll tie it back to what you were talking about with like your soccer injury as well, where a lot of the times, and actually maybe I shouldn't say a lot of times, but sometimes, some occasions, and I can say I've certainly found many occasions actually where the thing in the moment feels, just very negative. I'm
Hmm.
perceiving it from that point in time in my life where it feels bad, it hurts, it's not good, and I don't like it, and I will even beat myself. There's a specific situation where, so I came out of that relationship, 9 years, like that was all I knew, and had a couple little flings, nothing ever really solidified, and then I met a girl that I really, really liked. We spent like 3 months together, and now looking back, I understand it's such a small, tiny, it's just not a big deal. But
Hmm.
she ended up going to grad school, a different place, didn't really want to take on long distance plus a new school
Yeah.
and all that good stuff. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was so upset. And I think that it was because I was experiencing one, like a rebound, right? Like, I went from a tough situation to a one that I like, or, a new situation that got my mind off of it. But two was just like complete and total acceptance of what I am and who I am and how I behave. And there was no like, I don't know, it was just great. It was easy.
Yeah.
And, I was just devastated, quite frankly. And I was really hard on myself about it. And dude, not even half a year later,
Hmm.
I'm going back to school. It was summertime. And then obviously I go back to school and I start to realize if I was with this girl, I would be traveling away from all my friends every weekend. And my final year of school, I would not have even spent time with these people that now I understand at 30, I'll never get that time back. I'll never get that opportunity to hang out with all my homies in such a carefree time in my life. And so the very thing that I was so upset about and beating myself up about, I became grateful for that very thing not even half a year later. And it was just that right there is like a cornerstone of my existence, where I'm not saying that I can't experience bad things and feel sad. I can and I will continue to have that. But it just taught me that feel that emotion, feel that sadness, feel that disappointment, whatever, the frustration, but then don't let it just eat you alive, because the very thing that is bothering you right now could be, it could end up being a positive in the very near future, whether it's relationships or actually part of why I'm doing this job now is because I mean, I don't know if this is totally fair, but like I graduated this summer, I get into a parapro position because most education spots are filled by the time summer rolls around. And then the very next year, I was a PE monitor, so I was like an aide for a PE guy. He had to move due to coaching obligations. And so the position, like the athletic director of the school district, was basically like, it's yours, just apply. And someone with infinitely more experience and credentials and you know reason to be hired. There was no reason for them not to hire her, so she gets the job, and that's a huge raise that I miss out on. But if I had not missed out on that, there's no chance that I would have quit my job and pursued this, because I wouldn't have been able to justify foregoing that salary. So, that's just another example of that lesson that you were outlining there with the soccer thing, and I've experienced it a couple times as well. It does, like, just because it's bad right now doesn't mean it's going to continue to be bad. You may become grateful
Yeah.
for that very thing that you're upset about.
Yeah. I mean, I have the same thing now doing full time casting and content.
Yeah.
It was just a massive like uh expectancy of how your career is going to progress getting changed, and then you have that
Yeah.
like pivot moment where like if there's ever a time to
It's
try this out, it
yeah.
would be now, and you can't want to miss out on that. But definitely, I agree with the in psych it's called emotional forecasting. It's very hard for people in the moment to know how they're going to feel in the future. It
Yeah.
feels like you do know, but
Right.
the I would say almost like the emotional and even like cognitive and your negative thoughts, the inertia of that is very hard to shake off from your reasoning. So when people are
Right.
really bad, they're like, "This is it. Sorry,
Yeah.
like my life is done. Like I'm gonna be
Uh-huh.
so upset. Yeah, it'll feel a little better, but this is gonna suck." And then later on, you just move on. You're like, "Oh, like I feel good. Actually, this is actually
Yeah.
not a huge thing." Like you can look back and maybe it'll sting a little bit, but for the most part, you can think back on past experiences and I think you just view them just as that. They were happenings. They came, they went, and then now you are who you are. And I think I definitely view a lot of those past things as like learning experiences too general, but they're foundational points in your development that
Yeah.
create who you are. Like you would not be who you are mentally, emotionally, intellectually, even without those experiences. Because with my first girlfriend, she was great. Really liked being with her, but definitely was someone who, by her own admission, she wrote me a letter. I remember when after I graduated from college, we were broken up for a couple of years. Where, as part of her going to therapy, she wanted to apologize to people she felt like she was like wronging, and she felt like she was way too demanding of my time. I don't think I was very introverted. I need some alone time.
Yeah.
I was spending basically every single day with her. Like at times, I would sleep over at her house instead of being at home or something,
Yeah.
and uh, that really drained me. And it taught me later on that like you need to respect your own time. Like, yes, you're a people pleaser. You want to make everyone happy, but like you got it in the moment. If you feel burnout, if you feel like you need that recharge time, that if anyone who's introverted knows that feeling, you need that occasionally. Take that time, and it's not disrespectful. It's just a relationship should be give and take.
Yeah.
Um, and when I broke up with that girlfriend, I felt terrible at first, but then later on, I was like, actually, without that relationship, I don't think I would have really realized that. I definitely feel like
Yeah.
I would have burnt myself out trying to constantly please people, constantly hang out with people, and taught me to not necessarily have a backbone, but just be have some agency. Just be like, hey, I need this right now, and I'd hopefully you can respect the idea that this does
Yeah.
not weigh on you. This is just you have to take care of yourself. Self care is so important
That's right.
and something that maybe when you're younger you don't appreciate how much you really do need that in your life.
Yeah. Very true. All right. Well, we are actually a little over an hour. I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have one final kind of just open-ended question. I like to close things up with this. Um, if there's anything that's been on your mind that you would like to share, whether it be about you specifically, Rocket League, life in general, um, you may do so now. And if not, that's totally fine as well. We'll go ahead and close this thing up.
um I would say just in general, really just want to thank, I guess, the community in general for their support of everyone. I know there's been plenty of people like yourself who have announced, hey, I'm going to take on this super spooky venture, and the people actually rally behind that and really get
Yeah.
involved. And to a certain extent, streamers and personalities, it is kind of like you're buying into the person themselves, but it's nice to see that like the community is willing to throw their support behind you in whatever
Yeah.
case that is. I recently went through, I said top three most devastating moments was when I realized I was no longer playing soccer for a great majority of my life. The other one was very much so right before winter major. I found out that my graduate school was no longer extending my stay there. So instead of being a PhD student, I was just basically told like, hey, after the semester's done, finish your teaching out, grade your students, finish your projects, and then you're done. In the moment, it was devastating. I decided to try out full-time casting and content, and so far, it's been really nice because people in the Rocket League community, esports in general, people on Twitter that I just peripherally interact with,
Yeah.
very supportive. It's just nice to see that like kind of the human condition, people recognize that this person tries to put an effort. They want to reward it with their attention, with their support, with vouches, whatever. So I want to say thank you to all those people who support not only me, but like every creator out here trying to make some crazy dream happen, because you're rewarding people with passion. And ultimately, that's exactly what content creation, anything that, or really just anything passion based should be. You need to reward people who do that because otherwise we just have just very generic stuff floating around the scene funded
Yeah.
by big money, and that's not how it should be. It should definitely be the people who are putting in the groundwork and trying to create stuff from the ground up. So thank you to all of them, and thank you so much for coming on here. It's been really fun to just ramble about random topics.
Dude, yes, yes. I could not agree more, man. I am so grateful for everyone's support and their just willingness to accept, like you said, people trying new things and new ventures, content, tournaments, whatever it may be. We see so many people doing so many awesome things. And you're exactly right. Without the support of the scene and the community and the folks that are cheering us on, we wouldn't be able to do it. So big shout out to all of you. Big thank you to Danger Taco for carving out some time to chat with me this evening. I had a lot of fun. That's going to be it for this week's Outside the Grind. We will catch you next week.